Nobody saw this coming. NBA fans were completely stunned when the Denver Nuggets decided to fire their head coach Michael Malone and GM Calvin Booth, just 1 week before the playoffs. It's one of the latest coaching changes we've ever seen in NBA history. And naturally, everyone started asking the same question: why? What went so wrong that the defending champions had to pull the trigger right before the most important part of their season? Some fans even started wondering if Nikola Jokic was behind this. Had Jokic finally lost his patience? After all, the media had been all over the Nuggets lately, accusing them of wasting Jokic's prime. Clips had gone viral of Jokic looking more frustrated than ever before. But here's the thing, Jokic is not that kind of superstar. When ESPN asked him directly about the coach and GM situation, he responded calmly, "That's not my job. I'm just trying to play basketball." That's who Jokic is. He doesn't demand trades. He doesn't send cryptic tweets like other NBA stars. He doesn't stir up locker room drama. He just plays basketball, pure and simple, like Stephen Curry or Tim Duncan. But still, something had clearly gone terribly wrong in Denver. Just a week ago, the Nuggets were in a double overtime battle against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver was leading by 1 point in the final seconds. Russell Westbrook had a chance to ice the game with an easy layup, and he missed. The ball bounced to Nickel Alexander-Walker in the corner. And then, Russell made things worse, fouling him on a three-point attempt with 1 second left. Minnesota hit all 3 free throws, and Denver lost a heartbreaker. And here's the most painful part: Jokic had dropped a career-high 61 points in that game. And still lost. It was soul-crushing. It was the perfect snapshot of Denver's biggest problem. This team relies way too much on Jokic. He's carrying the entire franchise on his back. And the supporting cast around him? Just not good enough. The team fell apart after that loss, dropping 4 games in a row. They slipped from the 4th seed to the 5th. And they're now dangerously close to falling into the play-in tournament. And if that wasn't bad enough, Jamal Murray is dealing with a hamstring injury, and his availability for the playoffs is uncertain. This was the breaking point. Ownership looked at the situation and realized things were unraveling fast. If they didn't make a drastic move now, the entire season might go up in flames. So they made their decision. They fired the head coach. They fired the GM. And they sent a message: they're not going to waste Jokic's prime without a fight. But trust me, this is only the beginning of the story. Because behind the scenes, there was way more going on than anyone realized. Drama, conflict, and a power struggle between Coach Malone and GM Calvin Booth. Behind the scenes, things in Denver were way messier than they looked on the surface. This wasn't just about losing a few games or slipping in the standings. This was a power struggle that had been brewing for months, maybe even years. It all started after the Nuggets won their championship. Ownership made one thing very clear: they weren't willing to spend big money to keep the roster together. And that was the first crack in the foundation. Key veterans like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and even Reggie Jackson, all gone. These were the guys who helped Jokic win it all. They brought defense, experience, and playoff toughness. But Nuggets ownership didn't want to pay them. So what did GM Calvin Booth do? He told ownership, "Don't worry, I'll figure it out. I know another way." Instead of re-signing the vets, Booth went young. He drafted guys like Zeke Naji, Christian Braun, Julian Strawther, and brought in Peyton Watson. The idea was clear: get younger, cheaper, and build for the future. But there was one massive problem. Head coach Michael Malone hated playing young guys. He didn't trust them. He didn't want to waste time developing players during a championship window. Malone is an old-school, win-now coach. For him, every game matters. Every win matters. And playing unproven rookies in high-pressure games? Not happening. That's where the real tension started. Booth built a roster for the future. Malone was coaching for the present. And their relationship completely fell apart. NBA insider Kevin O'Connor reported that Booth and Malone barely even spoke to each other. They talked behind each other's backs. They blamed each other when things went wrong. It got ugly. By the end of last season, the cracks turned into a full-blown collapse. Denver went from defending champions to a second-round exit. In Game 7 against the Timberwolves, the Nuggets blew a 20-point lead. The reason? The vets were tired. The stars were overworked. Jamal Murray was basically playing on one leg. And who got the blame? Coach Malone. Booth pointed the finger directly at him. The relationship was broken beyond repair. Ownership realized this team wasn't just struggling on the court, it was falling apart internally. The coach and GM didn't believe in each other's vision. They weren't on the same page. And with the season spiraling out of control, the owners decided to clean house. Fire both. Start fresh. And while Michael Malone was the winningest coach in Nuggets history, the only coach Jokic had ever played for, he wasn't exactly the easiest guy to deal with either. Sure, he had a strong bond with players like Jamal Murray. When Murray tore his ACL, Malone was the one who told him, "You're still our guy, you'll come back better than ever." But when things got tough, Malone could be brutal. He'd call out players in the media. He treated them like children. And when the losses started piling up this season, it's easy to imagine how toxic that locker room must have felt. Ownership had seen enough. And now, the Nuggets have turned to their lead assistant, David Adelman, as the interim head coach. But here's the thing, this is Nikola Jokic we're talking about. One of the greatest players of all time, right in the middle of his prime. This can't just be a temporary fix. Denver has to get this next hire right. Now that the dust has settled, the big question is, what happens next for the Denver Nuggets? Because let's be real, this isn't just any ordinary team. This is Nikola Jokic we're talking about. One of the most unique and talented players in NBA history. He's in the middle of his prime. And Denver simply cannot afford to mess this up. For now, the Nuggets have promoted lead assistant David Adelman as the interim head coach. And sure, if he somehow takes this team on a deep playoff run, there's a chance he could be given the job permanently. But let's be honest, the Nuggets can't play it safe here. This is a critical moment for the franchise. They need a big-name coach. Someone with experience. Someone who can maximize Jokic's greatness, while also fixing the problems around him. So who's on the short list? There are already some interesting names floating around. One of them is Chauncey Billups, a Denver Nuggets legend, currently coaching the Portland Trail Blazers. If Portland decides to move on from him, Denver could absolutely make that call. Then there's Mike Budenholzer, the coach who won a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. He knows how to coach superstars. He knows how to build a championship system. Other names include Frank Vogel, who coached LeBron and AD to a title with the Lakers, and even Mike D'Antoni, the offensive mastermind who's been connected to Denver ownership for years. But no matter who they hire, the Nuggets have one mission: build the perfect roster around Jokic. Because here's the thing, Denver's biggest issue this season wasn't just coaching drama or injuries. It was their roster construction. Their defense has been terrible all year. And while Jokic puts in effort, the reality is he lacks the foot speed and verticality to be an elite defender. That's not a knock on him, it's just who he is as a player. But that means Denver has to surround him with 4 strong defenders who can cover ground, protect the rim, and take pressure off of him. And yes, the Nuggets do have a defensive lineup that works. When they sub in Peyton Watson and Russell Westbrook for Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., suddenly their defense looks championship level. But there's a huge trade-off. With Murray and Porter Jr. off the floor, Denver's offense struggles badly. They lose shooting. They lose spacing. And defenses start collapsing on Jokic, daring the other guys to beat them from outside. That's the puzzle Denver has to solve. They need a roster that can defend at a high level, without sacrificing their offensive firepower. It's a delicate balance, but it's the only way they'll get back to championship contention. And the Nuggets aren't the only team facing big decisions this summer. Stars like Zion Williamson could be on the move. Teams are gearing up for a wild offseason. But for Denver, everything comes down to one thing. They cannot waste Nikola Jokic's prime. They already sent a message by firing the coach and GM. Now it's time to back it up with smart moves, the right hire, and a roster built to win, before it's too late.